Disclaimer: all of the opinions in this video are my own subjective beliefs, and they hold no importance whatsoever. Duality. Arguably the most important philosophical concept in history. It's a cultural universal, one that has been documented for thousands of years across every civilization, and all of those years of study have been building up to this moment, right now, when it's being combined with the second most important philosophical concept of all time. What could that be? Of course, I'm talking about Geometry Dash. So RobTop finally announced the next Gauntlet contest where people submit levels revolving around a specific theme to potentially get included in the official pack of levels. This is the next to 4 in this update. The first one, being the NCS Gauntlet, didn't even really have a theme at all other than just using an NCS song. So people basically just made whatever they wanted and it turned out alright. The Space Gauntlet was super successful and turned out a bunch of levels. The Random Gauntlet, on the other hand, not so much. Because the random trigger is harder to implement than just a general space theme, we ended up getting less submissions that time. And now it's 2026 and time for a new gauntlet. And the theme is duality? What does that mean? For people who don't know words, duality refers to a dynamic between two concepts that usually oppose each other. But honestly, when this gauntlet was first announced, I expect a lot of people to not understand what to make of it. It sort of has the opposite problem with the random gauntlet, where it's so broad you could essentially apply it to anything. I know for a fact a lot of creators just looked at the word duality and saw dual in it and decided to make a dual level that didn't actually have anything else to do with duality. Because of that, when I planned on making a video reviewing the entries, I was expecting to have very little to work with. I was not prepared for a metric ton of levels to get dropped on me the day of the deadline. There's so many of them and they aren't anything like each other. I ended up having to trim down the number of entries to review to 50 levels, which is still like way too many. So if I missed any, tell me in the comments and I might leave my thoughts on it. To review them, I will be giving this cool new thing I like to call my opinion. I'll try to be positive since I generally like all of these levels, but I'll also have constructive criticism. If you're wondering what I like in the level, please consult the graph. Music sync, cohesiveness, progression, song representation, good theming, creative and fun gameplay, and generally good decoration quality. Also add a good usage of duality for the sake of this video. If that isn't clickbaity enough for you, we'll also be ranking them on a tier list of their chance to make it into the Gauntlet, which will probably age poorly considering I'm dropping this level right before the results, but it'll still be fun. Without anything else, let's get into the entries in alphabetical order. First up is Aerial Ascent, the Temu version of Artificial Ascent, but this one is better because it has my name in it. Duality is supposed to be between underground and overground or something like that, I think. Also, is overground even a word? It adds some nice progression because you spend the level slowly climbing out of this cave into the skies, and it also makes for a cool climax where you whiz through the clouds past all these hot air balloons. The clouds in the background are my favorite part of this. They just look so organically shaped compared to some of the other levels that use default clouds in a much more standard and boring way. Moving to earlier in the level, I want to call attention to the colors. If you don't know anything about color theory, it doesn't really matter, but basically some combinations look better than others, and you want to use the right saturation and brightness or it'll look bad. Thankfully, this level at least knows how to have good color combinations. They really pop out of the screen. This level definitely has a lot of problems though. Firstly, just look at this first part. What was the idea with this gameplay? It's kind of fun once you learn it, I guess, but otherwise it just feels like the creator was trying way too hard to make it sync, and ended up essentially having your icon get pinballed around for the first 20 seconds. Also, this is supposed to be a gauntlet level, and overall most of it is like 8-star to easy demon difficulty, but some of these ship parts are weirdly hard. The ending in particular has some damn near straight fly sections that really stick out compared to everything else. I think more playtesting would fix these issues. The only problem with the decoration is that some parts appear compositionally empty. Like, look at this transition part before the ending. It seems off, right? Probably because the background is the only thing there aside from the structures you're landing on. There's definitely a lot of good ideas in this level, and some of the execution, especially in the ending part, is really cool. It's definitely not going to end up in the Gauntlet, though. As I mentioned, some creators came up with really novel ideas for dualities to make levels based on, and Aerial Ascent was one of those, but others decided to do something more simple, like making a level with two contrasting colors, for example, which is something people already did anyway before the Gauntlet, but whatever. And a static archive is one of them. Okay, that's kind of reductive. I mean, the red side is a bunch of other colors, and the blue side is just blue. Is that a duality? Who cares? It's a cool level anyway. We got a lot of really bizarre entries in this contest, so having a more normal one like this is nice, even if it is less interesting to talk about. The gameplay is solid. There's a bunch of parts that are technically duels, but don't really feel like it at all, because they're actually only really controlling one player at a time. The backgrounds are sleek, and also this happens. Transitions like these are what people are going to be naming their kids in 20 years. Other than that, I don't think it's going to land in the Gauntlet, but I mean, it's not impossible either. Alright, we're 2 levels in and done messing around. It's time to talk about the big boys of the contest. The real MVPs, the LeBrons, if you will. After Flowery, by a bunch of people, is one of a surprisingly large number of levels about a duality between nature and technology. We'll see this theme come back later, but this is probably the best attempt at it. I mean, it doesn't really have anything to say about the relationship between those things, it mostly just has them in the level, but this is a GD level, I don't know what else I would expect. None of that has anything to do with the actual level I'm reviewing, so maybe I should get to that. But first, I need to lecture you about creating styles in GD for no reason. You'll see why in a second. Design is one of 4 core styles, and it focuses primarily on using GD objects for their quote-unquote intended purposes, and creating a lot of really detailed structures and stuff. Art style, on the other hand, employs those objects to make really cool custom art assets. There's also effect and modern styles, but those aren't really important right now. What is important is that both of these styles have drawbacks. With design, it's usually harder to pull off a specific theme when only utilizing objects in traditional ways. While with art style, there's usually so many custom art assets in a part that even one bad-looking object could be enough to throw the entire vibe off. After Flowery, though, doesn't really conform to either of those styles. It mixes together art assets and block designs, and so it doesn't suffer from any of the issues I described. But there was one thing I'd have to nitpick. Some of the gameplay here is a bit too quirky. Like at the end, there's this thing where the game mode is reversed, but it still plays the same as you would expect, and I low-key didn't even notice the first time I played this part. It also doesn't really affect any of the actual things you're doing, and it mostly just comes off at the level saying, "Look guys, look at this awesome thing I'm doing, pay attention to me please." I don't know, it's kind of just confusing and it doesn't really add anything to the level. Thankfully, it didn't really need anything added to it in the first place. Hold on, can we get some ambience for the next section? There we go. I will now tell you the most scariest Geometry Dash story of all time. I found it by downloading the level Balo.exe and playing it. In the story, there were 2 characters, and they existed. And then, at the end of the story, one of them died. So scary. Okay, that's enough of that. I don't know what just happened. Balo, or however that's pronounced, is another very unique entry that tries to tell a horror story in a Geometry Dash level. I wouldn't say those have had a very good track record, but this one actually does a pretty good job, if I'm being honest. If I had to compare it to anything, it'd be a 2003 Devon level, and he's even referenced in it, which is cool. The entire idea of this project revolves around using this childlike aesthetic to portray a horror story, which is why everything sort of looks like a sketchbook and everything is really imaginative and doesn't really make any sense. It does a good job at that. It even covers for when the art is being less detailed to save objects, because you could just chalk it up to it being the drawings of a child. Pretty neat, huh? It is really long, but there aren't really any difficulty concerns, at least not really. The only thing that annoyed me was the fact that there's multiple paths, which is fine on its own, but there's also jump indicators for both paths, so you could easily just click whenever you see indicators and end up screwing up because you weren't focused on the right path. That killed me like 5 times in the same spot. As for being in the Gauntlet, the duality between the 2 central characters is a good excuse, but I think the level might be a bit too off-putting to put in a Gauntlet, so I'll say it's plausible for now. The next one is called Below Nil, because we apparently have too many levels named Sub-Zero. There really aren't that many. Do you really have to go for Below Nil? Who says nil? This is a pixel level, which I can't figure out the duality for. The temperature increases throughout the level, so maybe it's supposed to be a hot versus cold thing, but then I translated the Celsius into Fahrenheit, and I don't know, man. 77 degrees Fahrenheit really isn't that hot. It might also be above and below ground again, because the elevation also increases as the level goes on, but at this point I don't even know anymore. I won't give it shit because some levels barely did anything even remotely related to Duality, and whatever I just described is good enough. The gameplay is quite fun. I especially like the cold section, even if the decoration kind of just becomes a smeared mess there. But it works, since Ice and Snow also famously becomes a smeared mess. The ball parts early in the level are the coolest looking ones though. They glow like they're being activated as a tech facility place you're in comes to life. Not a groundbreaking level by any means, but it's still pretty well made and somewhat memorable. Oh hey, look, a genuinely original concept for a level. One that none of the 50 others in this video did. That's actually impressive considering how much overlap there was with dualities in these. This one is cyberpunk versus steampunk, which is a very neat fusion of ideas. It's a shame the level doesn't really do much to actually mix them together. It's mostly just, here's a steampunk part, and here's a cyberpunk part, here's another steampunk part. Basically, you could separate the steampunk and cyberpunk sections and get two completely different levels, which is my main gripe with this entry. Thankfully, the rest of it was pretty solid. That's a joke because the levels are full of metal, which is solid. Anyway, you want to know another cool thing about this level? It has the hit character Gear from the Gear series. Please tell me people still remember these levels, they were so peak. There's supposed to be a boss fight against it, but there's no actual attacks and it's just normal gameplay. That does sound like a complaint, but boss fights are actually really hard to pull off, especially in easy levels, so I actually prefer that they did that, even if it is more boring. Some of the parts appear kind of empty because there's so much decorative focus that was put on the stuff in the background, and there aren't really many foreground elements. We'll see that come up again later in this list, but usually it doesn't really make a part worse, it just would have been better if there was more decoration mixed in between the foreground and the background. Also, take a look at this screenshot. What does this look like? Because apparently it was a trigger orb. Maybe I'm stupid, but I did not realize that at first, so I died here twice. Not exactly Gauntlet material in my opinion, but it still has a really cool theme. The level also pretends to end and then has more gameplay afterward just to troll you. That's kind of funny. What was the point of all of this, of course, is to break down all the dualities that actually mattered. Technology and earth, ground and air, hot and cold. But what about the spike ball guy versus the chomping monster? That's the real key to the universe. So I appreciate Funky Fries for building a level based on it. Castle Clash. As a story, as characters, as proof that the chomper could dunk, what else could you want in an entry? Seriously though, this level has fantastic progression. You get to see both sides as the chompers prepare to invade the spike ball guys' castle. And you get to see their secret plans and stuff, and the level ends as you descend the mountain to see this chaotic battle in the sunset. It would be genuinely kind of beautiful if it weren't also so goofy. The silliness is channeled by a song as well, so the song representation actually works just as well. I don't even have anything negative to say about this. It's not guaranteed to get into the Gauntlet, so you should check it out in case it doesn't. It's not too hard, and it's easily worth playing in my opinion. And now, a special guest. Hey, have you ever wondered what a semi-realistic art level with breakcore music would look like? That is what it would look like. Remember how I said some themes would repeat more than others? Nature and Machines is a frequent one, and as this level has one thing against After Flowery, it's that it actually has something to say about the concept. After all, human-made machines haven't exactly been good for nature, and that's what this level shows. It starts out with idyllic natural beauty, then you enter the factory, and in the end everything is getting polluted and chopped down. The first part of this level specifically is really stunning. Look at this shot. Look at the way the building in the background slowly moves on. Huh? Now look at the water and the ripple effects when you fall in. Huh? Now look at how the flower changes color after it activates. Huh? The realistic art style doesn't hurt the gameplay either. Instead, the part that looks significantly more normal in Geometry Dash Leica is the one with worse gameplay. There's way too many random auto parts that threw me off the sync. How do you have the section that's easiest to decorate without obscuring the gameplay be the one that plays the worst? It's not actually bad, I'm mostly just being dramatic, but I still wanted to point it out. This level is carried by its execution for sure, but it still has a chance at the Gauntlet though. Finally, another one that I have more interesting opinions about. Compact and Control is a very peculiar entry that's sort of similar to Aerial Ascent. Duality is presumably in the name Compact and Control, but I don't know what that means. At this point I've seen so many levels that are loosely themed, I'm not even going to try with this one. The best parts of this level are the seamlessness of the art style. Some art styles have jump indicators or other stuff that sticks out and sort of ruins your immersion in the level, but here everything has some sort of natural logic to it, as if the world was real and lived in. My favorite example of that is the jump indicators in the first duel, which are these wooden arrows sticking from the side of the screen. Later on, when you click the trigger or to move an obstacle out of the way, a machine blows it out of the way, which is way cooler than it just lamely retracting. The colors and composition of some of these parts are also really pretty. This part with the houses was probably one of the best sections in any of the levels with that. If you took a screenshot and removed the gameplay elements, you could genuinely just hang that up in someone's house as like a poster or something. You wouldn't even know it's from GD. But it's not far enough from regular GD art style-wise to hurt the gameplay either. No, instead, much like clearing, the gameplay is dragged down by something else, which actually upsets me a little bit, and it's the music sync, or the sad attempt at it. Just take a look. The song is so hype, and the level just meanders along, click there, movement there. It does not capture the vibe at all, and it comes off as really stilted and awkward, as if the level didn't feel like fully committing. I wish that problem didn't exist, because otherwise I would call this a super underrated entry, but right now I'm not thinking that at all. Also, creators, if you're watching this, please use more Meganeko songs. All of this duality stuff is all well and good, right, but it's just not enough, though. Only having one duality is for losers and chumps who are afraid to, I don't know, try to confront the entirety of human existence and the universe in one level. I'm sure that has no possible pitfalls. Anyway, unrelated, but check out this new level, Crossworlds. I wonder what's in it. Yeah, maybe this is a bit overzealous of a concept to try out, especially for a creator who barely made that many levels in the first place. It definitely doesn't fail in its task. I mean, just look at this ocean section. The jellyfish are so glistening and shiny, and this is almost as good as that one part in the ocean of fish. And the sky part is also really dramatic and fits the music. There's definitely some other parts that do not work nearly as well. I don't really know how to put it. The objects don't feel like they're rendered in the quality that they should. Did I mention that the entire level has text in the middle of the screen by default? That's going on some weird, deep philosophical tangent, and you can't even read it while playing, so it's essentially pointless unless you're watching a showcase. I mean, that really is the best way to appreciate this level. Maybe if you replaced the text with narration and got rid of some GD gameplay, this could be an ad for a Silicon Valley tech company. Yet still we ask, what mysteries are we yet to solve? What depths refuse to be seen further? What realms out there remain distant and uncharted? What waits for us in the far future? What will prevail at the end of it all? I admire the dedication to try something so ambitious, but you can't expect perfection when you reach for the stars, and it's probably not Gauntlet material either. Wait, I feel like I'm missing something. That symbol. You're telling me that out of all of these levels, none of them have reference to a thing that epitomizes what they're about? Outside of the end screen, that is. Well, there is still one. The yin and yang is a classic taijutsu of Chinese philosophy representing dualistic cosmetic forces. That is the subject of Tao by Z. Galliard, which is essentially everything I would want in one of these entries. It checks all of the boxes. Every part is visually dynamic and builds on the energy of the previous one. They match the song's vibe and sync to it, and the gameplay is both fun and original. Okay, maybe this ship and UFO part is kind of weird and annoying with some of its hitbox jank and overall on-site readability, and this section has lots of parts where it looks like you're supposed to jump, and you just don't have to. Maybe you did previously have to jump there and it got patched out by playtesters, but now half the part is auto and it feels really weird. That's the only nitpick though. Look at all the concepts it represents. We got classic East Asian calligraphy art, architectural designs, those funny little clouds you see in old paints, traditional gardening. Some of this definitely gets away from the whole yin-yang theme, but it probably would have been boring if it had just been repeating the same idea from part to part. It's only fitting that a level themed around the Gauntlet's own iconography deserves to be a part of it. Likely tier it is. What's this next one? Is it going to be another one of those slow, mellow ones? Please don't, I want to have actual things to say. Holy shit. This is another entry that has actual meaning. Life appears great on the surface, and then you walk into someone's shoes and everything sucks and is bad. Or as the song puts it... Who said it was easy to live? That's what the duality is supposed to be. The first half essentially is just a setup for the twist, painting the level and its settings more pleasant, and then the intensity notches up at the drop part, and then it ends in this firestorm, complete with a downright nasty guitar solo. The level does just end after that, but that's because the song fades out, and I don't really know how you would capitalize on that momentum anyway. Definitely a strong enough level, but I wouldn't say it's leading the competition per se. Oh hey, the next one's by BPI. If you don't know who that is, BPI is one of the most successful modern creators of recent times, even contributing an event level. Unfortunately, the gameplay in it was kinda shit on account of visibility problems and lackluster playtesting, so I didn't really have high expectations going into this entry, which is called Drifting Fortune. And I am proud to announce with my official aerial decree that I can't comment on the gameplay at all because I accidentally beat it first attempt. Oops. Duality here is between a soulless, monochromatic life and an energetic, colorful life, which I can't confirm I did not pick up on at all when I first played. I mean, it does make sense. The black and white parts are very still and lifeless, with the exception of your icon, but then the music swells and the screen fills with vibrant oranges and plants start growing into life and following your icon. My guess is that is the metaphor about how you should live life to the fullest by following your dreams rather than conforming, which is mostly based on how the dominoes get laid down at the beginning of the level, and at the end, you become the one to knock them down. A drifting fortune, indeed. It's very high quality, but aside from that little contextual story it tries to tell, I'm not sure if this one will stand out enough for the judges to make the cut, but I still think it's really nice. Hey, I'm glad that the names of these entries actually make sense to me now. Let's see what the next one is. What? End of Transbinding. Whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean. Is actually, surprisingly, another interesting level, because you want to know something integral to Geometry Dash that comes in sets to 2? Player colors. How did nobody else think of this? Outside the whole player colors deal, the level was this lab-themed hybrid design aesthetic, and it's simple enough to prevent a bad color combination from ruining it, as you can with some other player color-based levels I can think of. There's also a cool interface in the corner that does and means absolutely nothing, but I mean, it's interesting looking at it, right? The gameplay, on the other hand, is a bit weirder. It's not bad by any means, it mostly just confuses me. Pretty much all of the entries we've talked about so far have had jump indicators, even the ones that are really simple and easy. So you're telling me this level, which has a really confusing duel and a bunch of other learning gimmicks in it, has no indicators? Why? At least the core gameplay is creative, especially this vertical section, even if it is a lot harder than most of the rest of the level. I really like the duality this level came up with, but I don't think it's going to have anything else that's going to put it on the judge's radar. We've already talked about visual styles so far, and some were executed better than others. One of this is a pixel style, which mostly relies on, you guessed it, pixel blocks. But if some of those earlier examples were a strong handle over pixel design, this is the mastery of it. What an insane level. I was actually shocked when I first played it. Slowing it down is not enough to appreciate it. Mainly because these types of levels usually look worse at the speed, but that's no matter. Just look at the screen. Look at it. There's so much attention to detail. The foreground objects layered on top of each other with the ones closest to the screen being darker. The little things in the trees, how every branch is still recognizably sticking to the same style while using the same structure as actual trees. The castle in the background is fully rendered, the clouds, the motion blur, and movement and effects, and it's just too much. It really is a spectacle to behold, and it doesn't hinder the gameplay too much either. If anything, the weakest part of this is the actual duality, since it's mainly about comparing various worlds, but there's more than two, and they swap back and forth between each other rather than being in pairs, so It's not really Duality, but at this point who cares about the theme? It's still a sick project. I'm not sure whether this will be favored in the contest though, considering how underrated a lot of these pixel levels end up being. And would you look at that? We're already 15 entries in. We've seen everything at this point. I'm sure there's nothing that this next entry could have that would surprise me. Yeah, this is another weird one. I couldn't figure out what this one's about. The most I could figure is that the character on the screen right now created a bunch of worlds for escapism purposes, and the level is you going through them and eventually breaking out into reality, and the duality is between fiction and non-fiction. I don't know, maybe I'm not the right person to be interpreting this. Whatever the hell motivated the creation of this project didn't prevent it from being good, which it is. In fact, I would say this level might even have too much progression because a lot of the parts feel barely connected to each other. And the only thing they share is song representation, which is admittedly excellent. My favorite bits are probably the pixel world inside the TV, which reminds me of the previous entry, and some of the duels and the ending, which are actually really fun. Some of the other sections just don't have very much going on in them, probably because the song slows down, but the lack of speed mostly just draws attention to it. Also, this might have too much, how do I put it? I don't think it's going in the gauntlet, is what I'll say. Okay, here we are. This level. Fair Heart by G. Ben. This one is a personal favorite for me. It's probably my second favorite in the entire contest. There's definitely a good reason for that. I mean, if you look at the parameters from the beginning, it hits every single one perfectly. Okay, the duality is sort of abstract and mostly relying on duels as justification for it counting, but there's also something about the difference between who you really are and who you pretend to be socially. I mostly gathered that from the text in that ending though. It's hardly in the level. The gameplay is incredibly fun. The duels are really fast and complicated, but unlike some other levels in this list that I'll get to, they're really enjoyable and you barely even need to understand what's going on to pull them off. Granted, the level is certainly helped by having a fantastic song, but it also represents it really well too. I mean, just look at how the second player comes in the first part when the other instrument plays. And then the drop has a burst of energy, and the bridge pairs this howl-looking background up with a flute solo? And then the ending, the second drop extends as the dual ships fly endlessly higher. What absolute hype. I just feel how meditative the ending is with the music. The effects too, like the Aurora Borealis glow localized entirely with the second drop, or the fun interface on the screen that does nothing but still looks cool regardless, or the shapes that the constellations form in the ending. It's a level that's perfect to watch, play, or generally just feel the energy of. I really hope it ends up in the Gauntlet because this is not only one of my favorite entries in the contest, but one of my favorite levels in the entire year in general. Oh look, another nature versus technology level. Great, this list is really showing a lot of original ideas so far. Wait, who made this one again? Vectum? And he made the song too? And it's multiple paths? What the fuck? Okay, technically the alternate paths are only like 10 seconds long, but still, this is insanely high effort. The level is similar to Existential Escapade in that all of the parts look and feel quite different from each other, and it whips through them really quickly. But thankfully, the quality is really consistent throughout, and the transitions don't affect the gameplay too much. It does make the level feel really chaotic, especially with the alternate path thing, but it's not really an issue. My favorite section is definitely the 3D tower part. Just like in Fair Heart, it fits the song perfectly. Also, I can't tell if I like those 3D portals or if they make me feel unsafe. The weird thing about this level to me are the alternate paths. They're really short and immediately converge back onto the main path, so why are they here? My hunch is that it's to show off different parts of the song. Speaking of which, one of the parts is in Spanish and it repeats the same line twice, but the first time it's untranslated and the second time it's not. Why? Is it to slowly reveal it or something? Because that doesn't really work for Spanish speakers, and also the lyrics don't reveal anything about the level that couldn't have been said 5 seconds earlier anyway. Maybe he just forgot. You know the level is good when I'm having to nitpick inconsistencies in the translation of lyrics on the bottom of the screen. Anyway, it's probably gonna be in the Gauntlet. The next level is about everyone's favorite color. I can't put my finger on what color this is. Oh, thanks, level. This is Greed, which is a fusion of green and red. I don't know why green and red were chosen because those aren't traditionally thought of as opposites, but I guess it makes a better level name than Blued. Most of the parts don't really match the colors up against each other, it's mostly just a red part then a blue part, which I'm not personally a fan of, but there is one section where they switch between them, and it also affects the gameplay by switching the orbs from green to red and vice versa. That's a nice way to synthesize the decoration and gameplay. The level doesn't really do that elsewhere though, it's mostly just some simple effect-based parts. There's also a lot of random Greco-Roman statues throughout the level and I have no idea what they have to do with anything. Maybe these guys are supposed to be greedy? I don't know, I haven't seen the Odyssey. I don't think this level does enough to stand out as a Gauntlet contender either, but it still has some charm. Now, an important message. Are you sad? Do you feel like you've lost control of your life? Is the past all you can think about because you didn't adequately prepare for adulthood and so now you rely on nostalgia to crave happiness you can't find in your own life? Then you should check out our new level just for you, Hiraeth, or however that's supposed to be pronounced, the script doesn't say. We will take you through all of your struggles, and maybe you'll learn how to move on. Or maybe you won't, that's sort of the point. Our creative staff, also known as this one person, worked hard to deliver an unforgettable experience for you. I mean, just look at the immersive graphics. Your childhood is represented by fun little paper shapes instead of normal game modes, isn't that fun? And the adulthood sections have pills and lost memories, that's less fun, but still an immersive experience. Because that's what you want, isn't it? Contentment, that's what you need. Now, I know what you're thinking, and I've heard it 100 times. But narrator voice guy, why does this level that supposedly covers such dark themes end in a boss fight of all things? I mean, sure, it's a climactic way to end the level, but it doesn't really feel like it matches the tone. And to that, dear listener, I will answer. Well, I actually don't know, but I'm sure there's a good reason for it. Just like how there's also a good reason for some parts seemingly not referencing anything specific at all in the broader story, but all of it will make sense in time. I'm sure that the judges will reward our hard work with, oh come on, plausible? Really? Whatever, I'm out of here. And now, back to your regularly scheduled programming. What the hell just happened? Did we just skip a level? Whatever, I don't have time for this, let's just move on to the next one. Oh, it's a POC level. What's in it? Huh. It's an XXL with excellent song representation. It has creative gameplay that creates a sense of duality, even if it isn't really reinforced by the decoration, but that's fine. The deco is really stylistic and shifts as the level progresses to match the changing soundscape of the song, starting out more design-focused than a neo-design looking space section, then a sketchbook modern part, and it ends with the pixelated 3D part? That's so cool! None of it hinders the gameplay either. Holy crap, this entry looks so stacked. Why isn't anyone talking about it? Oh, I guess that's why. Okay, maybe framing it as a 4-minute 2-player level is a bit disingenuous. I mean, you don't really have any gameplay on the other side, and that's the whole point of the level, right? It matches the song name and everything, which is why it's called Hold On to Light. There's also a bunch of cool gameplay gimmicks that are enabled by having it be 2-player, like how you jump on top of your other icon and do platforming from it, with dashing. So I guess the fact that it's a 2-player level really isn't that much of a con. Right. I mean, that is the level's gimmick, and there's all those reasons to justify it that I just mentioned, but at the end of the day, holding down a button for 4 minutes just isn't very enjoyable. Thankfully, that's the only thing I could realistically complain about for this one, and even then, it's the entire point of the level. That said, I still think the whole 4-minute 2-player hold down the button thing might discourage it from placing in the gauntlet, but maybe I'll be wrong. You've seen various iconic GD levels about stealing expensive gems and having to break out of the place where you stole it from. But have you seen one where you do it with a woman? Haven't seen that before. HyperHeist. It's exactly what it sounds like. A heist level, but hyper. There's tons of details that are reminiscent of classic heist movies, like sneaking through ventilation with lasers, doing a motorcycle chase sequence, dodging security cameras. It's very faithful to the formula. Other than the fantastic transition at the drop, I wouldn't say that this one goes for a crazy spectacle or anything super over the top, which is probably why I don't have anything bad to say about it. The animations are fluid and just about as good as you hope. There's even Naruto running for some reason. I don't know what the hell that has to do with heist. The gameplay is solid, even the weird boss fight at the drop is fair and readable. Good to see just a nice all-around entry for once, I hope it places. But there is one level that does go for an over-the-top spectacle. We've already looked at many entries that try to do this, and without fully committing, it often ends up being impressive, sure, but maybe not deserving of the time and effort that could have been used to build a simpler but less flawed project. But there were entries that avoided this, because with enough talent and enough dedication, you can make something unbelievable. This is Judgement, one of the best entries on this list, and in my opinion, arguably the greatest hell level in Geometry Dash history. But this doesn't look like a hell level, you say. Where are the red and lava and clubstep monsters? Shut up. Well, hell obviously varies depending on what religion you subscribe to, but it's typically described as a place of eternal torment and punishment separated from the human world. So why, I ask, would hell look like places we already have on Earth? We already have volcanoes and big pits of fire and stuff. You're telling me that these are just hell-light? No. If hell was really as supernaturally terrifying as it was described, it would be incomprehensible. According to the description of this entry, you're supposed to be a fallen angel forced to atone for your sins, and I assume that the duality is supposed to be between life and death or something? That might honestly be the weakest part of this project, unless I'm missing something important. None of the decoration really resembles much of anything aside from the symbols that pop up from part to part, but I think that's the point. It's indecipherable to us. With such a surreal theme, you would hope that the gameplay would be just as surreal, and it is. Look at how weird the wave part moves and appears. Look at the custom game modes this entry uses. I honestly think the level would be a lot worse if the gameplay was just regular GD stuff, and that's why my least favorite parts are the ones that appear more or less standard for a hell level. Also, did I mention this entry uses a Mega Neko song? Yeah, this one is obviously peak. I would be surprised if this doesn't at least make the cut for the Gauntlet. Okay, I'm starting to get a little bit tired of some of these really high concept entries. Can we get something simple, maybe gameplay focused? Here we go, this one's called Lockout. They're really using the song in the Big 2-6? I feel like I flashed back to 10 years ago. The duality varies from part to part, but the entire second half is just dual, so I'd say that counts. There's a nice bubbly art style in the first half, and the gameplay in each part individually is fun. Why did I say individually? Well, look at these cool dual sections in the second half. What a creative idea for a part in the level. That adds some nice memorability to this entry. I sure hope these gimmicks don't completely throw the balancing off. They completely throw the balancing off. There's some parts in the first half that are unironically like 4 to 5 star gameplay, and the second half hits you with these learny, easy to medium demon duels, and that kind of just sinks the entire level for me. I mean, it is still a good entry, but having a gameplay focused level with that much of a gameplay problem is kind of hard to forgive for me personally. Definitely not a contender for this Gauntlet. At least it's going on the furry tier list because of this transition. The next entry is called Lunareth. This is a very technically impressive level. When I first played it, I saw the cool mountains in the background and I stood up and clapped. Wow, cool mountain, very cool. I saw ocean parts and big clock and eye and cool thing in this level I was playing and Can I rant for a second? Okay. What does inspiration mean? You might have noticed a lot of levels recently credit their inspirations on the end screen, and this one is no exception, but why? Well, inspiration refers to something that sparks a new idea in your head that you implement. Every artist uses inspiration to create art. We probably wouldn't have progressed as far as a society without it. Looking back at my playthrough of Lunareth, I got to this part, with this train going through purple space at light speed. Like in Kisaragi. And this part where you're going through time with a big clock in the background and memorable objects in the foreground. Like in Hiraeth. And near the ending where you're ascending while being chased by a hand. Like in Whitespace. All of these are credited inspiration, but that's besides the point. Inspiration is when you use an idea from one piece of media to create a new idea, or repurpose it somehow, or augment some aspect of it, or do literally anything to differentiate what you're inspired by from what you're creating. Inspiration is not blindly recreating parts from levels you like in your own. Now, is there something inherently wrong with doing this? No. In fact, recreating things is often a great way to develop as an artist. That said, the final product is fundamentally derivative. It would not be able to exist in the way that it does without the previous works that it relies on. And that's my problem with this level. I feel bad for tearing it down like this because this is obviously made by a developing creator, one who has a lot of talent given by the quality of these assets. That said, I can't ignore what the level actually is. I would love to see Snackless pursue a more original concept with their obviously strong creating abilities, but for now, I can't say I'm a huge fan of this level. And with that, we are officially halfway through the list. If you're still watching, I greatly appreciate it, because this video was rushed out in a pretty quick schedule. Literally like 8 days. Leave me some feedback in the comments, would ya? Anyway, the next one is called Malevolence. It's another hell-themed entry already? This one at least has a more explicit attempt at duality, with the two sides of hell being mentioned in the description. I don't really know how to interpret that. Based on the purple and red color choice and the use of the song from Terraria, this might be a purple hell versus red hell type deal, similar to the Corruption Crimson? I don't know, maybe it's just a duality between the furries on the end screen. Did I mention there are furries on the end screen? Onto the tier list it goes. Right, the actual level. The art style is interesting. It definitely rides the line between realistic and cartoonish. Some parts lean closer to one side than others. My favorite section decoration-wise is the purple one with the black hole in the background, or at least I think that's a black hole? But look at the structures. They're so organically shaped, the entire part appears very weird and unique. The stained glass part is also very nice, even though the gameplay is really funky. Seriously, what is this? This level is definitely unbalanced because the last part is really hard, but I'll forgive this one since it matches the song popping off. It also isn't hard in a learny way like Lockout was, it's just harder skill-wise. That's the main thing I can imagine people complaining about, but I don't really see it as that much of an issue. And I don't think the judges will either, which is why I think it has a solid shot at the gauntlet. Get it? Because they have guns on the end screen? Solid shot? Okay, I promise I'll stop. But what makes an entry solid, anyhow? Is it mind-blowing effects? Art? Is it gameplay that is solid to pull off? Is it a good understanding of the Gauntlet's theme and implementing all of them? It could be any one of those, but what happens when you do all of them at once? Yeah, this is the mythic entry. I don't even need to have the slightest doubt in my mind. If any of these levels are getting mythic, it's going to be this one. Why? Do I need to explain? Look at it. At the screen. A 3-minute entry with something always going on that doesn't compromise the core gameplay at all, complete with enough crazy effects to warrant a TikTok comment section full of kids saying, "How is this even GD?" I'm honestly shocked that Nexus hasn't posted some dumb clickbait video about this as of recording, but he definitely will once this gets rated. I mean, do I even need to argue for this one? Oh right, the duality thing. It's between abstraction and concreteness, and you can see it in the difference between the first two parts. They both play with the 3D effect, but one is blocky and stable while the other is formless and chaotic. I could probably fill an entire section just by pointing out the screen and talking about every cool thing that pops up like a lazy reaction channel, but I think you get the point. If this doesn't get into the contest, then I think we need to organize a protest in response. Oh look, it's an entry that's entirely normal. I honestly don't know if that makes it easier to say things about than the crazier ones we've been looking at, but they are definitely not as intimidating. This one, Middle Window, does something surprisingly interesting. We've already seen levels that contrast one color with another, but what about contrasting colors just generally with no color at all? That's a novel idea, and it's what this project attempts. There's definitely some parts that do this better than others. For example, the first section has a prism, which famously reflects white light into various colors. And later on, there's...
Oh, yes! I inspired my little eye!
And finally, a telescope, which is also related to light. A lot of these themed entries are sort of repetitive because they will touch on the same idea in the same way in every part, rather than finding new ways of expressing it, which this level avoids. Unfortunately, there are definitely some parts that feel kind of empty, probably just due to the way that they're composed. The worst example of this is probably the final part, which nearly looks unfinished, but is still somewhat saved by the 3D effect. Also, this color wheel in the background reminds me of Behind the Meme. Do people still even remember what that is? Not a contender by any means, but still worth checking it out. Alright, what's the next one? Never mind. I guess we are back to standout entries. It's Mark II by Dolph, the sequel to Project Novaform, which also won the previous Gauntlet contest. I wasn't huge on that one because the implementation of the two-player gimmick was kind of annoying to me. This level has more or less the same gimmick, which is why I'm surprised to say this is the most fun level in the contest and one of the most fun GD levels I've ever played in my entire life. Seriously. Project Novaform was made for the random Gauntlet contest, so the two-player implementation really revolved around it being random, which made it quite frustrating at times. This one, though, is for the Duality contest, and not only does the gimmick already make sense in that context, with two sides to it and all, but the randomness is toned down enough to let the gameplay flow perfectly. A lot of people have said this is too hard to be in the Gauntlet. Now that's been nerfed, I'd say it's still like a mid to hard medium demon, and should hopefully still qualify. Because this is standout for its gameplay alone. The decoration is spectacular too. I remember seeing some rage bait posts on a site that will not be named about how Dolph always uses the same style, and 1, of course creators have established styles, 2, of course these levels would be similar, they're literally sequels, and 3, they have different enough designs and settings to differentiate them anyway. God, some of you people really will never be satisfied. Anyway, I really hope this makes the cut for the Gauntlet. The only O entry on this list is Options, another gameplay-focused duel-heavy entry. Yay. Okay, I promise this one doesn't have any serious gameplay issues. Other than this transition into the break part, which was a pain in the ass and I died there like 3 times. The aesthetic of this one is a mix of an RGB color palette and early internet stuff, which really matches the From song. The asymmetrical duels play fine, but my favorite part is definitely the wave. I've never seen anything like this before. You essentially chart your own path through it while trying to avoid hitting these trigger orbs and surviving as long as you can, which is super original. I'm not sure an entry like this will get into the Gauntlet though, as creative as it is. But what about more important things, like the duality between Happy Land fun times and the anxiety of missing out on things? Or something like that. Because that's what the next level is. Did you like that? Was that transition good? Give me feedback in the comments and tag it with feedback on Ariel's cool transition. Thanks. It's Palindrome Path. The first half is super bubbly and nice, and then the second half is dark and edgy, like a full stare into my twisted perspective that would make you simply go insane. It is kind of corny, especially with the text, "You're late, Tom. You didn't just miss the train. You missed everything." The train being referenced is because the previous part took place at a train station, if you couldn't tell. And then you miss an orb and fall through a pipe in the sewers. That's a pretty cool transition. The color choices are nice, and the gameplay is, it's acceptable. I guess some parts are kind of empty, but they aren't really meant to be particularly realistic, judging by the creepy looking flowers bouncing in the middle of the sky. There is one problem with this level though. At the end there's this transition that kept killing me a bunch, where I flew too high into the ceiling every time I entered it. I thought, I wonder why that's happening. Maybe it's because I'm actually upside down or something. I went into practice mode to check it out, and it turns out there's 1,000,000 invisible slopes that do the entire transition for you. Seriously? Like, I get that you were too lazy to make the transition less jarring, but this is worse than if you hadn't tried to fix it to begin with. That's a cardinal sin, I'm sorry. The rest of the level is quite good, but I still have to mention that. Also, it's probably not going to make the Gauntlet anyway. Somehow, we've gotten through over 30 entries now, and we haven't gotten the level that's done night and day. But at least this level did. It's called Pass the Night, so let's see it take a crack at it. It's mostly done through making each part look like a combination of both night and day. There's twilight on the horizon in the night sections, and stars in the sky on the day ones. Some of them are really beautiful, like the one where the trees are hanging from the top of the screen, which looks especially unreal. Also, I like how the level ends with everything disintegrating. That's not to say there aren't some issues present. The level uses stars as jump indicators, which makes sense given the environment and the theme, but there's so many stars you can't tell which ones are jump indicators and which ones aren't, which makes it very easy to throw you off. The song choice is also really off. The entire level is very surreal, with the blending of night and day and abnormal colors, and in the background there's just a core-eye EDM drop. It just doesn't work for me. Not a huge Gauntlet contest winner either, in my opinion, but I admire it for what it is. Oh look, the next one's a pixel level, just like that other entry, and it looks really good. It's creative, it has a bunch of different parts, and the duality is solid. It flips in color between sections, and each one has a beautiful background, really nice designs. The night sky and reflection in the first section is particularly jaw-dropping. What an awesome project. I hope there's not anything bad to say about it. I really like this level, and I've been trying so hard this entire video to be nice and give constructive criticism, but can I just crash out for a second? Because this gameplay is terrible. Probably the worst out of any of the levels that I played. The balancing is essentially that it gets harder as it goes on, and if that was it, then it would be a bit annoying, but still fine. But not only is it XL, but the balancing is so polarized. The first part is literally 3-star gameplay, and then at the end, there's the duel. The duel. With this fucking obnoxious orb gameplay. There have been a bunch of levels with duels that look like this, but none of them played like this. It's weirdly high CPS for a Gauntlet level, and none of the inputs flow together at all. It's so long and frustrating, and it never gets consistent ever. It's the end of an XL level. And you're telling me this had 10 playtesters? Were they blind? What the fuck? This actually ruined the entire experience for me. I'm sorry, but I had to say it. I mean, it's definitely visually impressive enough to be a Gauntlet contender anyway, but I wish I would agree that it belongs there. So, pretend for a minute that you're me and looking through these entries in the same order we've been doing. By this point you've played over 30 levels, many of which are really interesting or have some visual spectacle or fun gameplay that elevates them above the rest. And then, you reach this level, Princess Demon. You look at the comments and it's full of people saying that's amazing, mythic-worthy even. So, with high expectations, you check it out, and upon seeing the first part, you think to yourself, is this a joke? What the hell am I even looking at? You finish it, and the level doesn't even seem to work properly. You just end up doing the same jump over and over again. You go to your script to begin writing the preface for your negative review when you decide that you should at least beat the level first before starting. You figure out what you did wrong in practice mode, and as it continues, everything slowly begins to click into place. Now, don't get me wrong, this level is still kind of messy. It is made in 2.0 after all, the update famous for being a complete clusterfuck. But despite that, it's actually really good. It tells a better story than most of the levels built using an editor complex enough to do complicated 3D rendering, in one that is most known for ugly rainbow blocks and fire effects. I honestly don't even know how to get into this one without essentially relaying the entire story, but basically there's this duality aspect between the Dasher characters and the demon characters, and you play as a Dasher sent by Rob Top to kill the princess of the demons. It sounds like a joke, right? But, well, spoiler alert, but you end up befriending her, and the demons become the victims, and you have to save them by defeating Rob Top, and there's an emotional hook because the princess's mom dies, and I really don't feel like I could do this narrative justice by describing it, because it's really silly, but it works in the context level. Everything is done with that story in mind, including the fake ending I mentioned earlier. You storm through the demon kingdom while they're being ransacked, and you can go into people's houses and stuff, and then the ending. Excuse me for calling 2.2 the editor where you can do complex 3D rendering, because apparently you can do that in 2.0. I don't even know what to say. The only thing that quote-unquote holds it back is the very limitation that makes it interesting in the first place, and that's why I hope it'll get into the Gauntlet. Something just as silly, though, that leverages the potential of the current update rather than one from a decade ago is Quality Time by Wistfrost. Parents and children are opposites in a way, so why not make a duality entry themed to that? And this one is just lovely. A dual gimmick is used to represent it, where one icon is bigger than the other and they're right on top of each other to represent a parent carrying their child, which is just so fun. The gameplay that comes out of it is super fun too, and lacking in bugs. There's a part where the kid bounces on the parent's head, and these clicks. So satisfying. The song rep is also perfect because the song is just as cute as the level. I love how the kids' side is all imaginative with paper planes and Pokemon cards and stuff, while the parents' side is taxes and bills and whatnot. Anyway, this is consistently good enough to belong in the Gauntlet. Ooh, the next one's an Ivy Teal level. This is Quicksilver, and it's definitely the sleekest of all the entries. I'm pretty sure the word sleek in the dictionary talks about this level. As a gameplay-focused project, you would hope the gameplay would be good. And it is. It's just a bit learny and maybe on the hard side as far as the contest goes. I assume that duality comes from the amount of duels in the level, because other than that and the very nice teal and purple color scheme, there's not very much to go off here. The weirdest thing about this entry, and the only thing I have to say about it that's negative, is that it's the only one of these levels that I had lag issues on. Seriously, this one? Of all the crazy art and design heavy entries I played, this is the one with the optimization problems? That just doesn't make any sense. Oh well, it's still really solid. It might end up making the cut. The next one's another odd one. It's called Saol Aris, and it's obviously a very art-heavy entry. The art itself is quite impressive. What I like even more than the art itself is how it's put together, though. The level uses a theme of duality with man and machine, yet again, and nature overtakes the earth as the level progresses, which is cool. But I really love how the parallax is used. The foreground and background move so naturally together that they would look real if they weren't so stylized. Look at how all of the background objects move at different rates in the last part. This is done for every single little part of the terrain, so it looks seamless even when the terrain moves up or down. For that, I really appreciate the level of effort put into this project. That said, there are two big problems with this level. One, the art quality is very inconsistent. Like how in the third to last part, there's these crazy looking waterfall mountains in the background and they look so stunning. They're perfectly colored and fit in excellently. And then in the background, there's just this weird looking spiral that substitute for clouds. Why? What? There's so many examples of this throughout the level. It's like the signal drops out or something. The second problem is a bit more complicated. In the first part, you're traversing this abandoned city and there's no movement or energy to it, which makes sense. The city is abandoned and the song is quiet. But then you break out into nature and the camera zooms out and the music hits the climax and there's just nothing. No movement, no effects, no energy, no nothing. Pretty much all of the art in the level is static, which for using a song this dramatic is just a no-no. It makes the entire level feel off. This is obviously a very high-effort level made by a talented creator, but those problems reduce it a lot, and I don't think it will get into the Gauntlet for that reason. Nearing the end of the list now, we're 3/4 of the way through, and after all this time, I finally found an entry where I legitimately am unable to figure out any sense of duality in it. I'm talking about Seashore Resort by Lyra and Akir. Seriously, where is it? The level doesn't have a duel, nor any ideas in it opposed to each other. It's literally just what the title says, a seashore resort. The description doesn't say, and I wouldn't have even known that it was for this contest if it wasn't in a list of entries. To be honest, I don't really have very strong opinions about this one. It's a cool concept, and it has solid execution. The gameplay is fine with the exception of the part with the pipes. The transitions are kind of bad sometimes, but other times they're not bad. The art quality is good, but it keeps switching styles every few seconds for no reason. I guess they were trying to keep it interesting? I don't know. If I couldn't figure out what the duality was after some serious thought, there's no way this one makes it into the Gauntlet. This one, though, I do have strong opinions on, because it's actually really cool. It's called Seismic Activity. I think convincing you that these levels are interesting near the end of the list might be hard, but just look at this one. We got a fire versus ice theme. Every section has a hot part and a cold part, like the first one where it looks like a forest in the aftermath of a wildfire, even though there's water, so that actually doesn't make any sense. Then you get halfway through and boom, now it's a frozen forest, and the structuring is done in a way so that it doesn't really have to change that much when the transition happens, which is smart. The theme does get eroded a bit at times though. Like, the next part is underwater, and I guess the first part is supposed to be hot because hydrothermal vents, but those are also in the cold part, which doesn't really do a lot to look cold either. Then the next part is a cave. The hot section makes sense, but all the cold part does is it removes the lava and makes the gems blue, because apparently blue gems are colder than red ones. The best way to resolve that would have just been to add ice to the parts I mentioned, but the creator, Sean, did not do that. Maybe the transition would have been hard to pull off or something. The climax is definitely my favorite part of the level though. You enter the core of the Earth and the visual style completely changes as you fly through it, and it's really cool to play and watch. Great progression, bundle in with some solid gameplay and a good song. What else could you want? Okay, maybe it could be improved in some places, and it doesn't really go for anything crazy, so that's probably why it's not going to Gauntlet, but I still like it. Okay, I hear you viewers. The list is almost over. That's sad, but show no tears, my viewer, because that's the name of the next level. Smooth! It's another one of those dual-heavy gameplay-focused levels with two primary colors. Oh wow! This one might actually be Matrix-themed, because in the first part, when it turns red it shows open eyes, and then when they close it turns blue. But that's just a theory. Okay! We got gameplay gimmicks, check. We got cool-looking effects, check. We got jump indicators, including these really interesting original ones at the spider part, check. Wait, there's also a custom game mode, that's new. It is extremely easy compared to everything else though. Same with the spider orb section, this is like 4-star gameplay for no reason. This level doesn't really go anywhere with the momentum builds, which is kind of unfortunate, but again, it's not really the level's fault considering the song literally just ends. Still though, I'm not sure this level stands out that much. This one though, this one! Is also probably not going to be in the Gauntlet, but there's still stuff to talk about. Surprisingly, no other level has decided to make their duality about using multiple paths. Okay, technically the Goldfinch one had an alternate path, but that wasn't really the focus of the level. Other than that, I don't really get what the theme of this level is. We're in this facility, and then we go to the train station, and we fight... nothing? Are we fighting the train? Am I losing my mind? Then suddenly we're fighting a scorpion in a boss fight I'm not even confident works. I feel like I should have died here. I don't know, maybe there's just a lot of leeway. That lack of a concrete theme makes this level less memorable, but it still has a lot going for it. With the Dorabe Choose Way type gimmick that the gameplay is based on, you would hope that the different paths are at least interesting enough to be worth checking out, and they're decent. I mean, they're all really short, so it's not like they could have done anything super theatrical in that time, but they're all still there. The first part has some cool effects. The parallax of the second part is really nice. The third part has impact text. And the boss fight is quite well animated. Some parts have the same problem as Saol Aris, where there's not much going on, but the drop is the main part where that matters, and it's not particularly an issue there. Not an insane level by any means, but it is still technically well crafted to some degree. Again, not well crafted enough to be a Gauntlet contender, as far as I can tell, but you can still check it out if you want. You should also play this next one, but for completely different reasons. Why? Well, at the time of writing, the level Solstice is rated as a medium demon. For reference, it's actually like an 8-star. I have no idea why it's like this, but enjoy the free medium demon, I suppose. Oh yeah, the actual level is good too. It's a pixel level, but not really in the same style as Eternal Blue and Phantom Duality. It's more of a simpler, colorful approach, almost like some of the modern themed entries we talked about. Most of the pixels are only concentrated in the foreground, while the background is less detailed. Other than Path to Night, this is the other level that is themed to night and day, and it does it fine. Definitely not as good though. It mostly just has some parts at day and some parts at night, which, as I said in the intro, is not a very interesting way to do duality in my opinion. Also, the gameplay is weird because there's so much auto it threw me off and caused me to fail when I was expecting an input. And that was really the only difficulty in the entire level for me. Seriously, this level is really easy. I don't think it stands out enough to be in the Gauntlet though. Now, I'm going to show you a video of the next entry, and I want you to take a guess at what the hell this is supposed to be about. Anyone? Maybe the creator can explain? Because to me it just looks like a bunch of random bullshit happening. If there is a thematic duality, I'm missing it, but the entire level is a dual, so that still counts. One thing that the level does do, which is unique, is the 4:3 aspect ratio. Again, I don't really know what the point of it is, but it does make the level look and feel different. This project is quite reliant on filters in some parts, especially the pixelation one, which at times doesn't exactly create the best effect, but I guess it could be considered part of the chaos that it's trying to create. The transitions can also be a little bit weird at times, but other than that, the gameplay is solid, mostly just learning. Oh my god. Also, in a lot of the sections, you don't even need to care about what the other player is doing, because it's off doing some random stuff, and it's purely cosmetic. I don't expect this to be in the Gauntlet, but it's certainly memorable for some reasons. It also has the white space hand. Add it to the list. Okay, so we need to flash back a bit to like the halfway point in this list. Do you remember this level? It is about whatever this guy is. Master Reality. The person who controls reality. Well, apparently, he actually sucks because the next level is about the Master. Because why make a level about literal duality when you could have the antagonist be the actual yin-yang manifested as a villain? Never change, Geometry Dash creators. It took a while, but we finally got another silly fun time entry instead of an evil and intimidating entry. It works very well as a song, and every single little voice clip in it is utilized in the level.
You are, it seems, one with many skills. What a rare combination.
I'm glad this project never really takes itself too seriously. If it had gone for like a hyper-realistic style, I probably would have felt off compared to the jaunty music, but everything is cartoonish enough to just feel right. Still, it's not like it isn't elaborate in some ways. Even as a 3-minute XL, there's animated cutscenes, some of which make for really solid transitions, like the one where the icon flies into the sky. There's gameplay gimmicks like the one where you're in a duel and keep reusing the same orbs to rise up in a pit of acid, which is really fun even if you do have to pre-practice this part. I also like how the main villain has a bunch of minions that you fight, like the auto face and the big skeleton guy. None of the parts are visually bad, but there are definitely some that are really simple to save objects, which is acceptable. There's also some inconsistencies in the balancing, but it isn't enough to sync the level. This is probably one of the best song representation entries, and it's probably a potential Gauntlet contender. Hold on, I just lost my thread. What was this video about again? Of course. Duality. Two things that oppose each other, and yet they are the same. Notice how many of these entries haven't even touched on that second part. How they're also meant to be similar in the same way that they're different. Well, there is one idea that nobody's touched so far. Light. Is it a particle or a wave? It's both. How did you make a level about this? How did you come up with this? What? Like, it makes sense. Duality's even in the name of the phenomenon. That's just so ridiculous. And yet somehow this level sticks better to its duality premise than most of the other levels on this list. Sure, it's mostly done through random text and diagrams in the background, but seriously, how else would you go about representing wave-particle duality in a GD level? Some parts definitely look better than others. The duel is kind of a mess, but the color scheme the level uses is excellent, and some sections are stunning, like the ones at the end. My favorite part, though, is the one at the beginning, with the 3D models representing particles, and then it goes into a design section with waveforms being displayed on the screens to represent waves. It's such a fun way of showing the concept. I mean, sure, it's definitely inconsistent in quality, don't get me wrong, and I don't think this entry has enough to it to make the Gauntlet, but conceptually, this might be the single best level in the entire video. I'm really glad I found this. Well, this is a bit awkward. Haha, I'm going to review this level now! The next entry is called To Rot Like an Apple. We're getting into the final stretch here, and at this point the entries are still really weird, but now I'm kind of desensitized. Like, I think the duality here is supposed to be between things being decorated and things not being decorated, because the level's gimmick is that all of the structures are empty at the start, and they slowly get filled in over time. Ironically, the structures getting filled in is the opposite of something rotting, so I have no idea why the level is called that. It starts out quite well done. I really like the flowers and the structure design and the power lines, but to be honest, the glow that creates the lighting effect for the background can oversaturate the screen a lot of the time, and it might have been better if it had been toned down a bit. Some of the later sections are more empty, but that's where the gameplay starts to use heavy gravity, which is cool because not many levels do that. Please make more levels with heavy gravity. Not much to say about this one other than that. Probably not Gauntlet material. But yeah, I forgot to mention that this level ends with a huge text wall. Apparently, this level is about a gay love story. What? There's only 3 entries left to talk about, and one of them is one of the most hyped in the entire contest. Everyone loves this one. I hope I like it as much as everyone else. I'll probably be coming off the contrarian in this review because it seems like everyone likes this level way more than me. I mean, people are saying it's gonna get mythic and whatnot, and clearly the mods like it, so maybe, but am I missing something here? There's tons to like, and I'll get into that in a second, but I don't understand why, after everything we looked at today, this is considered one of the best entries. Don't get me wrong, it's a really good concept for a level, and the execution is also really strong. It's about the duality of life and death, which surprisingly has barely been covered so far. It starts with the creation of man, then we go into an absolutely crazy part with Earth showing the growth and destruction of life itself as it slowly turns and pans up to the heavens with what appears to be a black hole. The next few parts are supposedly imagined based on the transition from the previous part, so we go through and see the luxuries of life, but just like the previous sequence, it eventually breaks down. The same thing happens in the last part, where you come down from the clouds to see a war-stricken landscape. That's awesome conceptually, and I also love the use of the second player icon and other icons to represent other people. I especially like how the UFO in the first part is literally abducting stuff for some reason. That said, I don't get the hype completely. I get like 90% of it, but there's some things that weaken it for me. The ending, for example, is fairly empty, and I really don't get the vibe of destruction from it, aside from the singular background object of the swords and the red background. The gameplay doesn't do anything crazy either, though there aren't really any problems with it. It's a really good entry and a solid contender for the Gauntlet, but maybe it's just not for me? Oh great, another quote-unquote gameplay-focused entry, which, if you are still in this point in the video and haven't realized by now, is just code for this level has no theme other than a usage of duels for duality's sake. And for that, this one is fine. It doesn't do anything crazy, other than being the second gay level on this list. I'm surprised that isn't all of them. Well, if it's gameplay focused, the gameplay better be good, and it is. The duel is fairly inconsistent and didn't really work as well as I wanted to, but the second half is much more consistent and satisfying to pull off. Speaking of, the decoration in that part is way better than the first half. Take a look. The wave corridors have those spikes move around when you get close to them, and the color choices are really appealing and pop right out of the screen. And the part after it is also really nice, with all those shades of purple flowing into each other. I think I might have excluded this one if it hadn't picked itself up by the end. It definitely saved itself from unmemorability, but it didn't save itself from nope tier, unfortunately. And here we are, the big one, the 50th entry. And it's a pretty good one to close it out. Sorry, did I mean pretty good? I meant arguably mythic-worthy. Of course, I'm talking about Worse Than You by GamerKnight750. I think this one speaks for itself, honestly. This is sort of a higher concept narrative one about a person with split personality disorder, where the two personalities are literally fighting for control of the person throughout the level, and by the end, one of them dies and forcibly takes over, which is just wild. There's a lot to analyze in this one, so here are my favorite details. The flowers in the first part are made of pads, some of which you can interact with. Both sides of reality created by the personalities are filled with holes, representing how they are mentally broken, with hatred from the other bleeding in. The way everything gets abstract in the middle of the level as if the person is losing touch with reality. All the cool dual gimmicks in the middle of the level. The entire vertical grayscale section, which is visually stunning. And of course the ending, where one of the 3D waves breaks down and disappears, representing the fracture of one of the personalities, with the other taking control of the person in the end. That might be the best finale to any of these entries. There is one thing in this level that I don't like though. The first 3D section. It's learny, doesn't play well, it doesn't really look good either, and it doesn't represent anything that couldn't have been done in 2D, so what's the point? This might just be one of the parts that exist to make people go, wow, that looks so insane, this has to go in the Gauntlet. But in my opinion, it wasn't necessary to do that, and only pulls the level down. The rest of it is peak though, and I would be shocked if this didn't make the cut in the end. That should have been the end of the video, but it's still going? Did I forget something? Well, it is true that I did leave out a level earlier, because as much as Worse Than You is a great project that I think is really cool, I also wanted to reinforce a point that I haven't really talked about in this video as a conclusion, because this entire time we've been evaluating all of these entries by the same parameters to what makes a good level in my opinion, but sometimes there's more than that. At the end of the day, art is something that you experience first and think about later. Usually my reason for liking something are formed after I've already developed an opinion about it, because ultimately art is subjective. There's no real qualities that make something good or bad, and these are just guidelines, not hard and fast rules. So Maybe my favorite entry won't be the one that's most visually impressive or has the most enjoyable gameplay. It'll be the one that makes me feel the most. And that's what this level is. If you asked me what made this my favorite entry, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you. Sure, the duel gameplay is fun, the decoration is beautiful, and the song representation is the best in the entire contest. There aren't any mind-blowing effects to show your IRL friends, there isn't a gimmick that makes it stand out, and I hardly even know what the level is about. I just know that there's something so special about the progression in this one. It starts out so melancholic and visually simple, and that visual simplicity makes the drop hit so hard. It gives me chills when I watch it, and the ending is amazing. It references the title because the level tells you to click an orb, and just like The Boy Who Cried Wolf, the level is lying to you. You can even subtly tell with some hard to see text that says don't, but you can't get tricked forever, so the third time, you don't have to click. I already knew I was going to like this level when I saw it was by Ripley, who also made Comatose, but I was not expecting this to be my favorite entry in the entire contest. I can't promise you'll agree, but that's okay, as long as you check it out and give it a fair shake before forming an opinion. That's all that matters, right? Anyway, this level isn't going in the Gauntlet. And that's it. 50 entries reviewed. I only had 11 days to make this between the deadline and the results video, so that's why this one ended up being a little rushed. My next video, which is also really long and reviewing a similar amount of levels, is already in the works when I started this, and should be a lot more interesting, funny, and better edited than this one. I know I said that I would cover constructive criticism of these levels, but I didn't really end up having time to explain what would have fixed some of the problems I pointed out in this video. There's 3 main reasons for that. 1, I'm not a creator. 2, it would have made the video even longer. And 3, it would have killed the pacing. I'll try to do that better next time. Anyway, if you somehow made it this far, I appreciate you greatly, and it would mean a lot if you subscribed or liked or commented which entries you liked most, and did all that other stuff. Until I see you again, this is Ariel signing off.